Welcome to Leadership Moments.
In every great leader's life, there are pivotal moments that shape their character, test their resilience, and awaken their vision.
Together, we'll uncover the invaluable lessons hidden within these transformative moments. Today, our guest is Carey Patchla. Carey is the president and CEO of Fast Tech Global. He joined a startup in 2003, built it to become a best-in-class organization that included hundreds of team members that served Fortune top 10 to mid-size and startup organizations. Carey then purchased the company she oversaw from infancy in 2020 to expand it internationally. Carey is passionate about education and is laser focused on community organizations with an education purpose. She has been an active member and former president of Michigan Council of Women in Technology for over 18 years, and she continues to serve on multiple boards within the community that are centered around education. Today, we are going to talk about how important it is for leaders to take action on team member performance and the impact when you don't. Let's dive in. Hi, Carey. Thank you for being a guest on our podcast today. I am super excited to talk about some of your experiences that you've had. And, when we talk about challenges as leaders, can you describe a challenge that you've had that tested your leadership skills and how you navigated through it?
Wonderful. Thanks so much for having me, Stacey. I really appreciate it, and I'm excited for today. It was interesting when you had asked me the question. Of course, I took a few days to think about it, and then I came up with what I think is a little bit fun title, but it's maybe not the most fun topic to talk about. And the title that I came up with is Fester or Fire. And I will talk about that a little bit, but also maybe other things that can crop up that festering never is a good idea. So with Fester or Fire, started thinking about that with some of the challenges that I have come up with in my maybe career in leadership, career as an entrepreneur, is when you realize that somebody in the organization isn't adding value anymore. The festering just creates a bigger problem versus taking quicker action and resolving the problem. Ends up, you can move forward, the team can move forward. And I'm sure as many people look back, they usually think, gosh, I should have done that a little bit sooner. Maybe I was afraid. Maybe I was worried about X, Y, and Z. An example is hiring an individual or having somebody on your team that's also a friend. Maybe they were a friend before you hired them, and maybe they did a good job for a while. And then things went downhill. Maybe they had other things going on in their lives. They got distracted. I have a situation like that where I let it fester too long. And I even tried to many times give the person the benefit of the doubt. I offered them a new role in the organization. And finally, at the moment where the problem was too great that I did have to fire the individual, I had many team members come to me and say, Carey, thank goodness. Why didn't you do that a year ago? It impacted me because, or I was covering this individual and doing some of their work. So the problem was actually bigger than I thought it was. And so my lessons were I should have taken quicker action. I should have asked more team members for insights, as soon as the decision happened, or that I decided and I actually did the hard deed. The morale of the organization picked up, especially in the fact that at that time, we weren't that big of an organization. So you have one individual, maybe you have 20 people on your team, you have one individual that is that Debbie Downer or is not pulling their weight. It affects other people. You may think it doesn't as much, but it does. So that was one of my big leadership lessons.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And, it's very interesting how it impacts other people. And I think that's a really key piece. There's studies done that it shows it takes 7 positive people to counteract 1 negative person. And not saying that this person's negative, but just even thinking about negative reactions and how maybe they might not be pulling their weight on the team. And you
Mhm.
talked a little bit about some pieces really kind of triggered you, that how people came up to you afterwards and how you realized, okay, I need to move forward. What's some advice that you would give other leaders to help learn some of these skills to be able to act faster?
Yeah, and that's interesting. And I'll mention a couple things and then hopefully I'll circle back and answer that question. But I think the other piece of it is, there's sometimes where you have a issue or an individual that isn't performing, but they're in a very key role. And maybe they're the only one that does that role. And so the thought of letting them go is tough because you're thinking somebody's going to have to pick up that slack. Who knows what they do? And that's going to create so many other waves and problems. And I think still ripping that band aid off and dealing with the somebody's going to have to jump in and learn this job is important. And so I had that happen recently, and it was in a role that only one person had, and again the whole team is better for it. Yes, it created some extra work in late hours, and hopefully as an organization you can compensate, appreciate those type of scenarios or those individuals. And then also, as you're bringing the new person in, that is when we started documenting the role, the responsibilities, the processes, and things like that. So, and we're doing that kind of across the organization because you never want to be held captive or held for ransom per se. As a leader, you should be able to replace if there is an issue. And I'm certainly not talking about, individuals that are great contributors and have been with the organization a long time. You don't want to be trigger happy, but there is the time and the need to do that, right? The advice that I might have is just, I know, sometimes whether it's a firing, a layoff, a hard discussion, a performance review discussion, is just do it. Get it over with. Be always empathetic and compassionate, but it's going to fester and you're going to lose sleep over it. It's not going to help the organization. So just get it over with, right? Put it up, put the meeting on the calendar, suck it up and do it, right? Discussions are hard, but just do it. And then I think that whether it's any of those scenarios, right, afterwards, you can move on, right? And then you can focus on something strategic for the organization standpoint. And then either if it's just the hard discussion, either you're going to see improvement or you're not, but you're going to watch it and not let it fester any longer.
Yeah, those are really key points. One thing I liked about that is making sure you just have the conversation, which can
Mhm.
like easier said than done. But one
Yes.
thing that I think about is if you really care about that team member or care about the organization, then giving them that feedback is the best thing you can do for them to help them either hopefully realize and be successful and turn it around, or one, then realize that, okay, maybe this is not the right role for them or the right organization for them, and
Right.
finding what that is. So I love that that you added that. So
Mhm.
thank you for that. When you think about leaders and having these conversations, you talked a little bit about friends, and when you bring friends in and doing that, is there anything different that you would do when it's a friend versus maybe someone that you didn't know before you brought them into the organization when working through this?
Mhm. Yeah, and I've learned along the way there because I, uh, you want to sometimes hire a friend. You trust them, you know them. They will probably, more cases than not, do a great job, work hard. You're helping them and they're helping you. But I continue to craft that and learn that, but kind of set clear upfront expectations. Like these are the expectations, these are the role, this is the role. And at any time that you feel that it's not the right role for you, because it's the flip side too. They may be worried about letting you down, or, coming to you and saying, hey, this isn't the right position or career, or I want to move on, and having those open discussions. Like if you ever come to me and say, hey, I've loved my time here, but I need to do something different now. I will say I will respect that, and I will be cheering you from the sidelines, right? So having those over discussions up front from both angles, right? Like if we don't have the budget, if you want to move on, having discussion both ways. So knowing what their expectations are, what your expectations are, and talking about the what ifs, and that, hey, if you want to move on, if we lose budget, we understand, right? Or if there's a organizational direction change, but we're happy that we could work together for the time being, or for the period, or for the years. But if they ever come to you and say, I am ready to move on in my next adventure, we will be happy for them as well.
Yeah, really key points. I think, having that conversation up front and probably even having it over and over again,
Mhm.
however it's months, years, whatever, but just making sure it stays top of mind for both sides is really good. So thank you for sharing those. Another thing I'd like to circle back with is you talked about when you have team member that they're the only one that knows this piece and does it, that really hesitates us as leaders in like moving forward when maybe they're not right for the team or the organization. And
Mhm.
so to me, that kind of talks about like succession planning. And you talked a little bit about that, but maybe what are some tricks that you do to help with succession planning and making sure that you don't find yourself in that type of situation?
Mhm. Well, I'm still a work in progress in that space. One of the things that I mentioned earlier was definitely have as part of the planning for the year, or maybe setting out the goals for individuals or for departments, and have part of those goals be cross training, have them be documentation, have them be relooking at the process and procedure and continuously improving it, right? So the more individuals that know a little bit about what each other do, that more helpful it is, right? Because it may not even just be, hey, this person's no longer with the organization. Whether they decide to leave or the organization decides to leave them, something else might happen, right? There may be an illness or something like that. So we are continuously trying to improve in that space, and I think the team's doing a great job. The other thing is, my HR director, who's been with Fast Tech Global for a long time, she's phenomenal. She has, and she has a global team for us. She has a global view that everybody can kind of see where everybody else is along the path of maybe a project, program, a task, and somebody else could potentially pick it up because she has been working on the cross training, even though it might not be somebody's specific role. But she does a great job. The team knows what path they're on, what everybody's working on, what the major goals and initiatives are. And that, of course, includes super time sensitive, important things like timekeeping, like payroll, like background checks to get somebody onboarded. And they do a great job. And that's having a 360 visual view for everybody.
Yeah, that's really great thinking. Like, one, tying it to what's the overall goals, setting
Mhm.
some metrics, like you're saying, and then obviously looking at that and making sure that you have a hold of those. Love that your
Yeah.
director's doing that. Really great pieces. And so when we talk about as leaders and having some of your team members come to you after the fact when you had some people leave or change roles
Mhm.
and say, wow, like thank you, so much better. I think that's really building trust in your teams, that they'll have a safe environment that they can come to you and kind of say, hey, this is going on, so maybe you can be aware on how it's impacting other teams.
Right.
What are some strategies that you do to build trust and maintain that morale within the team, when faced with challenges like this?
Yeah, great question. And I think honestly, it got a little bit harder during COVID when everybody was remote, right? And at least we had video like we're on right now, Zoom and other platforms. But what I have found is, and as our team has gotten bigger, I don't have as many one-on-one interactions as I might have 10 years ago, 5 years ago. So, just picking up the phone, like, let's say I'm driving to a meeting, I always think, who could I call? I have 30 minutes in the car. Who could I call? Right? Like, who, whether it's internally, maybe it's a client, but picking up the phone and just saying, hey, I'm just calling to see how your day is going. Like, hey, thank you for being a part of the team. We haven't talked in a while. What's new? Sometimes I will get oh my gosh, it's great to hear from you. Everything's going fine, or everything's going okay. And other times they'll be like, it's great to hear from you. Thanks for calling me. I just have to tell you, this is my one thing that's bugging me. And sometimes it's just being heard, right? I might not have a solution for the individual, but just being heard and understanding. Like, gosh, I'm so sorry. That's tough. I wish I had a solution for you, but I don't. But I'm sure you'll come up with the right decision, or I'm sure you'll figure it out. I have trust in you. So just a simple reach out phone call.
Yeah, it takes seconds to minutes, right? And but yet
Hmm.
we don't do it often enough. So
Right.
I love that, especially, if you're traveling in the car or whatever. And a lot of our listeners are, traveling in the car when they listen to our podcast. So as
Yeah.
soon as this podcast ends, hopefully they can call someone real quick and just say, "Hey, how are you doing?" So it's a great reminder. So when one thing you talked about is your team members, and I think you guys have like a Team Member Tuesday that you do on social media. So you
Hmm.
prop out your team members. So love that you do stuff like that. So that's kind of another way, some things that you have done. Are there other things that you do to prop out your team members and make them feel appreciated?
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that we do for our internal team, that is our support team supporting our consultants out in the field and such, we have a pop star of the week. So we have a team meeting on Thursdays, and we'll call out somebody for some extraordinary steps that they've done, or just because they're showing up all of the time. And they have a star that's on the board at work, and they get a gift card. So we have our pop star of the week that's important to us. And then just some other things for any individual that reaches 10 years. They get a gift card to Shinola, which is a Detroit based company. So we'll give a plug to Detroit based companies, and they can buy a watch, or they can buy a bag or a purse. And so, kind of thinking back old school, like at an anniversary, companies would give people watches, but this is even better because you can pick what you want. So we try to reward for longevity as well. Those are a couple examples.
Yeah, those are great. Love that. Recently, you have gone global with your company.
Mhm.
Maybe discuss some challenges on going global that you're comfortable with, maybe around communication or just different cultures, and kind of how you handle that, and maybe for other leaders to think about if they're planning on going global as well.
Really, really good question. And I would say, going global was super exciting for us. It's been really rewarding. And we have a great team, particularly in India, that is working really hard, growing our presence there. But I would say, from a challenge perspective, certainly you have another complete startup. So the more wisdom, the more cross training, like processes that you can set up in the other country, is a great thing. So we've done a lot around growing our training program and offering various trainings that could be for somebody here in the US, somebody in India, so that we can have the like processes. And certainly it's different culture, it's a different business environment. So every process doesn't fit. So you have to be flexible as well. Having the team engage together and do some problem solving together and such. So we're on a great path from a kind of process standpoint, and we want to impart our wisdom from being in business being in this business for a long time, but 20 years with this organization, to our new individuals in India and other places.
That's great. And I'm curious, when we talked about succession planning a few minutes ago and about writing down processes, making sure things are documented, making sure that you're cross training, did part of going global with something that helped you like enforce that and prepare for that? Were you already doing it before going global? Like, how did that tie together, if at all?
Hmm, good question. I would say that you're doing it a little bit, but now like maybe 25%, 30% of the time. And it did absolutely force us to really think about it, write things down. And now we're doing it maybe 80% of the time, right? And part of the writing down is when you're learning something brand new. Everybody is a different learner, right? Some are verbal, some are visual, some are I need to see it four different ways to learn it. And then you have a different culture, different time zone, and some language barriers here and there. So it actually forced us to be better at how we learn, train, and such. So I'm super thankful for that, and definitely global impacted that and jetted it forward.
What I like about that is even if you're in a company that's not going global, but you want to develop those processes and strengthen them, that it sounds like really just getting people outside of the area, looking at them and saying, hey, like, I don't understand this or whatever, so you
Mhm.
can strengthen them. I offer to a lot of people that when you're writing down a process that I actually recommend that you teach someone, have them write the process, and then you as the expert, like review it, because when you write it, when you know it, there's things that you miss because you just naturally do it and don't even think about it. But I think that's a great thought of how you can strengthen those, and love that you're leveraging your business growth to be able
Mhm.
to strengthen your core base and how with your processes and procedures and stuff like that. So kudos to you. That's really awesome.
Thank you. And you're right on regarding having somebody else like the learner write it, right? The other thing is if you have a little bit of cushion budget wise and things like that, I am a firm believer of when somebody comes, presents themselves, and maybe you didn't have a specific role for that person, but you think that they're a rock star, hiring them. Even if you didn't like, I didn't have the specific budget, I didn't have the specific role, but hiring them and finding out where they could fit for the time being, you always find a home for them. And my example here is we had an individual that came across our paths last year that had been in recruiting. And we always love hiring recruiters because that's our business. But they had a really ironclad non compete that was for 1 year. So we decided to hire her anyways. And then we had she's working on special projects. One would be the learning and training. So we've implemented a learning management system. She's helped move forward a lot of the training programs and platforms and things like that. So, that created an opportunity for us to really put it in the forefront of our strategy for this year.
That is a great story. And what I love about that is it's kind of the flip side of the fester of fire that we started with, which was,
Yeah.
hey, someone might not be performing well and making sure that we're acting forward. But now you have the flip side of, hey, I really want this person on my team, but I might have some reasons why I can't bring them on for what I wanted them for, and
Mhm.
really getting creative, but acting now and making sure that you're bringing them on board. So that's a great example of how you can get creative and move forward now.
Yeah.
It's yeah, awesome. So when we talk about leadership and communication, and we've talked a little bit about like communicating and giving the feedback to team members that may be struggling, or even the great work that they're doing,
Mhm.
what are some challenges that you believe leaders should do to help them with increasing their communication skills?
Well, I would think that just even having a lot of informal chats. It doesn't have to be a full like sit down. I've put an hour in my calendar. It may be again in your car, a quick phone call. How are you doing today? This is what I saw, or this is what I see, or let me help you with this, or a drive by somebody's desk if you happen to be in the office with them, and sometimes just some words of encouragement. But what I've been trying to be more purposeful about the last year or two is providing the right tools and training for individuals that may like, hey, they could expand their skills a bit more. So, how can we help as the organization, the leader, to provide them training opportunities? Maybe it's in a software or a business tool or a leadership something, and spend the money and send people to leadership programs or to day CIO summits and things like that, because just even a day out of the office in a, I don't know what the setting might be, but maybe you have a panel of speakers or a day of several leaders speaking, people get energized. They get maybe a tidbit or a couple things. Maybe they get 3 things that they can bring back, but they just get a little energized. Maybe they'll work a little harder the next day, right? So just do different things like that.
Yeah, that's really good. And if I was maybe a younger leader or someone who struggles with giving feedback, and I came to you and I said, Carey, help me with, I have to have this tough conversation. Help me with preparing to have it properly as a leader to my team member. What would be some things that you would tell me to do?
Mhm. Well, I would definitely put your thoughts on paper, right? Sit down, prepare maybe a couple days before, because you may start writing some things out and then the next day you add a bit more, but keep it always practical, and not personal. So practical on the skill base, on the initiative, or what the issue might be, and then have some idea in your head what the solutions might be, or think about what the feedback might be. And you should know your individual. Are they going to be a little bit more defensive? Are they going to take it in stride? And just really kind of like you would a client meeting, any other business meeting, prepare for it.
Yeah, really great thoughts. And you're right. Like it's not really any different whether I'm talking to a team member or a client or a partner. That
Mhm.
preparation still matters. So I love
Mhm.
the idea of writing it out, getting some thoughts around it. I know some people like to role play. Some people cannot stand role playing, but I
Mhm.
believe that that's super important if you could try to do that a little bit as well. So really good feedback. So there's that sound. We are at the point of our fun questions. So, are you ready for these questions?
I am ready for the questions. Yes.
All right. First question is, what is your favorite word or quip?
Well, I have been telling my team recently to avoid the noise. And I got this term from a awesome business leader that is in an industry that goes up and down with the economy. And somebody had asked them, how do you handle this up and down in the economy? And she said, we years ago thought we sat down as a leadership team or a whole company team and said, avoid the noise. There's nothing that we can do about the interest rates. Right now, we're in a UAW strike, right, for the automotive industry. There's nothing that we can do about maybe an office, and on and on and on and on. So avoid the noise, keep your head down, and focus on what you're good at. And I have a second one now because, as you and I were talking earlier, I was mentioning that I was up late last night watching the University of Colorado versus Colorado State football game that started at 10:30 my time, and it's the big showdown in Colorado, and we have a lot of excitement with Deion Sanders, who is sparking some life into a lifeless team that we had prior to him. And the big word that he talks about is passion. Have passion. You might not have passion for the spreadsheet that you're looking at that specific day or that moment, but have passion for what you do overall. And if you come to the day, the meeting, the whatever it might be with a little bit of passion, it makes a difference.
Yeah, that's great. All right, next
Yeah.
question. What is your favorite hobby and how did you get into it?
Mm. Well, and I have probably my top favorite, but I have a bunch of hobbies, so that's a good thing. I also think it's important as leaders, as anyone that's working full time, to have some sort of outlet, right? So what I'm passionate about is I love playing tennis. I've been fortunate that I got into it because as a kid, we lived in this neighborhood that had a little swim club that had a swim team and a tennis team. So I started at a young age. I was able to play competitively in high school, and then able to see my youngest daughter play in high school, and she won the state finals this year in Michigan and in doubles. So that was super fun. So I'm passionate about anything about tennis. I love watching it. I love rooting it on. We had some U.S. tennis players in the US Open this year. Coco is one of the youngest people that won. She's from the US. She's got a lot of passion and a lot of spark. We have Shelton, young guy that did really well too from the US. So it's an exciting time in tennis for the US, even though everybody's moving to pickleball. That is a little bit fun too.
You're right. There are lots of people moving to pickleball, but both are great. Really good points.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, thank you for sharing. So, Carey, if anyone wanted to get a hold of you, where could people find you?
Well, they could go to our website at fasttech.com, or they could send me an email at cpachla, which is CPACHLA at fasttech.com, which is FASTTEK.com, or LinkedIn. Come find me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to chat.
Great. Well, thank you, Carey. Thank you for the great insight today and sharing your stories. I think a lot of great nuggets for people to walk away with one, having passion, ignoring the noise, and focus on your business, depending on the things that are out of your control and around you, making sure that you realize that you move forward with team members and that might be struggling and how it impacts other team members when you don't move forward. Love the one about bringing somebody on board when you know they're a good team member and you want them on the team, like find a way to get them there, whatever that is. So really, really great nuggets. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Stacy. You summed it up so well. So it was great to talk to you today, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. And that concludes another episode of Leadership Moments. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights in what we shared today. Remember, leadership is not defined solely by titles or positions, but by the choices we make and the moments that shape us.
Embrace the challenges that come your way. They may be the very moments that propel you toward greatness. We'd love to hear your thoughts and stories as well. Connect with us on our website at leadershipmomentspodcast.com or through social media on Instagram at @be the game changer.
And Stacy Castor _. Remember, your leadership moment could be just around the corner, waiting for you to seize it. This is Stacy Castor, and what doesn't challenge you won't change you.
This is Tracy Ann Palmer, and be the change you wish to see in the world.